Hey everyone, Chris Sawyer here. The Varietal Show is back. I am here with a very, very good friend of mine, Kiley Evans. We are here at an amazing winery, Padigan, and I'll tell you a little bit more about Padigan in a couple minutes. But we're drinking some fine Viognier. We are in the Rogue Valley here in Southern Oregon, and to be really honest, it's one of my favorite places to come. I really did take this week off just to come up here to Oregon. It's the end of the year and I haven't been here, and I kind of miss Kiley. We haven't seen each other for a while.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, and there's a lot to talk about with Oregon, and especially with Oregon wines and what they're doing. I had the real pleasure last year of coming here with the Southern Oregon Wine Board, and everything that's happening here is so important. A lot of people call this the flyover zone because they come from the Bay Area or LA or wherever and go to Portland, but you're missing so much right here, and I think people are starting to see this. I started thinking about this, Kiley, about why it's the Shakespeare Festival is based here. Like, how did they think of this place? You start thinking about all the beauty and all the things other than just Shakespeare, and just how big this is. We're here with the Klamath Mountains right behind us, and we've got the big coastal range going that way, and right behind us is the vineyard. And Kiley, you're California too. You went to UC Davis just like me. Here we are, go Aggies. But why is it so awesome here?
Well, we've got just a great spot for wine grapes. We've got a climate that's really conducive to ripening a lot of different varieties. We get plenty of heat during the growing season. We have a very limited amount of rainfall during the growing season, so there's a lot of things that are working in our favor just from a Mother Nature kind of climatic point of view. We've got shelter from mountain ranges on 3 of the 4 sides of the valley.
Yep.
That help keep us dry in the summer. So we're actually kind of a high altitude desert, even though we're not really we're not super high altitude, but just as defined by rainfall amounts, we're essentially a desert.
Yeah, and I want to say one thing too. When you drive over the state line here, and you're way up there in the Siskiyou Mountains, which I was last night. Hello, I did make it, everyone. Thank you. But and you're coming down into Ashland. You feel like you're coming down the hill like this, and it's really windy, and you got to really watch your speed there. But the fact is, you think you're coming down to river level or ocean level. You are not. You're actually coming down to about 2,000 feet, and that's a really important thing. We are still high elevation here, and that's a really interesting point about this area. Is we look at Napa and Sonoma. Oh, the mountain is like really big. Like, look how high it is. It's 2,000 feet. Well, that's where you're starting here.
Yeah.
That's like amazing, and I think that's a big deal. Well, one of the other things I really want to point out is something that's really interesting about this area, and it's about a guy whose name was Peter Britt. He was actually a Swiss winemaker and Swiss entrepreneur that came here. 1852 is when he founded his winery right here. That is before Buena Vista in California. Buena Vista is 1857. That's 5 years before that, and it was 7 years before Oregon even became a state. This Swiss guy was on to something here, and you got to give that guy some creds.
I'm telling you, that's a man with a vision for the future, right?
Yeah,
there.
he was, and here we are today. So we're tasting the Viognier, and I want to say one thing that I noticed on my notes from this was like years ago, like 2017 when I was here, maybe the first time. But we've had great dinners when I've stayed here with the family, and I want to give a shout out to Ross, the great owner, and Jen, who are the owners of this great winery. But the thing is that I noticed that this is block 1. And so this is the first thing that was planted was Viognier.
Yep, original planting in 2009. Yeah, Viognier and Tempranillo, and those vines are really, really healthy and doing great for us, and they produce consistently good quality. In fact, I think this is 2021, and I think the Viognier in 2021 is exceptional.
Yeah, let's make something really clear here. I wanted to talk about the Padigan name. So some of you guys might know this brand a little bit different. It was called Two Hawk. And Two Hawk was a name that they purchased, the family purchased, and Two Hawk is. I actually looked it up the other day, and I found like, oh, there's a road called Two Hawk, and there's this called Two Hawk, and there's Two Hawk is. There's a lot of Two Hawks, you guys. There's more than one hawk, and there's a lot of them out there. Padigan is actually the name of the soil here, and so they have really started to really do that. And the Darrow is a brand that you've had for a while. That's been like a kind of the higher end tier, and that's also the name of a soil type right here. So tell us a little bit about the soil.
Yeah, so we've got two basic soil types, the Darrow series and the Padigan series, after which the brand is now done. But they're both relatively common in the Rogue Valley, at least on this side of the valley. And they are characterized as generally moderately silty to moderately clayey loams. And they do really, really well for us.
Yep.
They hold a little bit more water than a lot of the sandier stuff does, so we don't have to irrigate quite so much, which is important. I mean, you don't have vines in the Rogue Valley without irrigation.
Yep.
But they produce wines that tend to lean. The Darrow soils tend to be a little bit more minerally, and the Padigan soils tend to be a little bit more fruit forward.
Yep, yep. It's interesting too. We're kind of on a bench here, so this is it's called the Bear Creek. What do we call it? The
Bear Creek Subbasin.
Yeah, subbasin. So we are kind of sloping downwards like this. Not really dramatically, but we are sloping down. And I noticed, like when I was in Ashland, there's Bear Creek. And then there's another Bear Creek. You're crossing Bear Creek. So Bear Creek's kind of like all over the place here. A lot of bears, huh?
Yeah,
There probably even
actually
more.
Yeah, there are a lot of bears. But Bear Creek is the main, is the largest tributary of the Rogue River.
Yeah.
And so that kind of defines this side of the valley. Then when you get into the upper Rogue, which is more towards Eagle Point, which is a little further north of here, that's the true upper Rogue part of the Rogue Valley. But yeah, the Bear Creek Subbasin that we're in right here, this is a really old agricultural area. Pears have been grown here since the 1800s, just like Peter Britt established.
Yeah, and I do want to say this about Peter Britt. He was super cool. But I also want to say that he was also the father, known as the father of the fruits of the southern Oregon. And,
very much so.
And there's actually some clones here that are Peter Britt clones. The guy he's our Luther Burbank for Northern California, and the man he had it. And it's Swiss. Don't forget that. So there's a Swiss connection with Oregon that we don't really think about. And actually, I'll even give it that to our fellow UC Davis graduate, who was David Lett, very famous guy, who kind of helped found Willamette Valley. He brought the 2A, 1A, the Vadensville clones, which are 1A, 2A, and 3A, were all tested there. They are all Vadensville Swiss clones. And he brought them up here and on his journey to prove he was right. They told him, don't go to Oregon. It's never going to work there. And he did. And you know what? He was absolutely right. Same thing with Richard Sumner, too, who was the one that really did the Umpqua Valley. And he was even before David Lett. So there were 4 UC Davis grads back then. Dick, we got to give Dick Erath some credit, and also Charles Curry as well. All UC Davis grads, just like us. So anyways, back to wine, which we were talking about. This is about as definable of what apricots in Viognier taste like. Where you get that apricot kind of underbelly, and then you build off of that. The peaches are great in here too. Everything, this is just an elegant, sophisticated style of Viognier.
Yeah, this is the reserve tier Viognier. So Viognier does exceptionally well in the Rogue Valley, and most everybody in the Rogue Valley grows Viognier. They produce Viognier, most of them done in a flinty, more dry, crisp style stainless steel tank fermentation for the most part. But when Ross and I got together back in 2014, we started. We were talking about what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do things that were a little bit out of the norm. And we looked at the great Viognier regions around the world, and the one we consistently landed on was Condrieu. And we started trying to figure out, Viognier does so well in the Rogue Valley. Why isn't anyone trying to do more of a Condrieu style of Viognier? Yep. And so we made a decision in 2016. Actually, I kind of talked him into trying 2 barrels of Viognier, 50 cases, and it was exceptionally well received, and the wine was fantastic. Yeah. And that production has grown now to where we're closer to 300 cases of the barrel style, the Condrieu influenced Viognier, if you will.
It's really good, you guys. No, I mean the mouthfeel. It's kind of sexy, it is sexiness. Yeah.
Viognier this wine is one of those where I kind of just, not that I take the fruit for granted, but I take the fruit for granted and focus more on texture. Yeah. And so we really want this wine to have that creamy, smooth, elegant texture that lends itself to mouthfeel and building quality of the wine as it goes down.
That's fantastic. So we're here. I will say one of my greatest accomplishments ever is getting you and Ross to come to Telluride with me.
Oh, that was so
It
much
was
fun.
like, and I'll tell you right now, it was like the greatest dinner ever that we've ever had. It was like the three of us were just little boys playing with the greatest food we've ever had at this restaurant in Telluride, All Reds, and we were up there looking over the whole city. And I brought you there because I was doing a seminar on sommeliers, and that's what you were before you got into this. And now it's very trendy, you guys. People do it all the time. There's sommeliers are making wines all the time. You are way ahead of this thing. This was like, I was like looking at my 2017 thing, and you'd already been in the business like 20 years. So this is a long time ago.
Yeah.
This is like 30 years ago almost, when you were not quite, but getting there.
I don't know if I like that number of 30 years ago or not, but yeah, I mean, it's been a while. It's been a while. But that's one of those things. I consider myself exceptionally fortunate that I got to understand what wine is and what quality wine is and the definition of terroir before I actually learned how to make wine. Yeah. And I think that's an important concept. Yeah. Just because people know how to make wine doesn't mean they know what terroir is and how to express wines. And I always say, and you've heard me say this before, making Viognier, for instance, that smells and tastes like Viognier is relatively easy. Making Viognier that smells and tastes like Viognier grown right here is exceptionally difficult, and that's what we're trying to do. We are trying to make wines that express the variety, but also the region specificity.
And the site, site specifically. And that's why you have these different soils here that are very, very unique. And I mean, we were walking out there last year when I was here with that amazing media group, and we were sitting there looking at rocks. I mean, and it was warm, and it was really great. We were here in October, and I thought that was the best time. I mean, we were smelling the grapes. You guys were bringing stuff in. We were sitting there tasting these grapes out there. And speaking of which, Syrah, hello. This is 100% from the estate. This is Padigan. And is this the first bottling under the Padigan label?
No, the 2020 vintage was the first bottling.
Okay, so this is a 2021.
Yeah, so this is 2021. This hasn't been released yet. This will be released this coming spring. And
so you're getting a preview. It hasn't even been released, you guys. This is coming out in March, right?
Yeah. Yep. We're getting low on a lot of different things, so we're trying.
I know.
We're having
That's
to look at what's
that's his
available.
good problem. He's actually sold out of a lot of stuff, so get used to it. And I want to show you guys something too. This is basically where we're at right now. This is in their tasting room. This is where we're at. I mean, we could have been in the winemaking facility. And I'll tell you, that's one thing I really respect you so much, Kiley. You've got it rigged pretty good over there. I mean, that's some nice equipment that he's using. This is state-of-the-art stuff. It's the way the whole thing is set up. There's a yin and a yang and a kind of a feng shui thing going on over there, and it's cool.
Well, we really tried to design the facility for flexibility and for things that just make sense. Yeah. I mean, why would you want to have something located 100 feet away from where you actually use it? Yeah. So that you can spend time walking back and forth. Yeah. So we tried to design as much flexibility and as much just common sense design elements into the building as possible around all the required elements. The gravity flow, the microbial stability that we've got built into the building with the floor coating and with the ozone gas pumped in and things. That's one of the really important parts about our winemaking philosophy is not using any cultured yeast to try to express the vineyard more. Right. And so there's a lot of that design element that goes into the building.
That's great. And I'll tell you, Syrah, I love Syrah. Syrah, Grenache, Mourvedre, as we get into those grape varieties, they are just unbelievable. Grenache is the most planted red grape in the world. Sorry, you guys, Cab is not. It's not at all. Grenache has a lot more history than Cab does. It goes way back to Spain, and it went to France, and it's all over Australia, and obviously Washington, upstate. Walla Walla. Come on, if you don't have Grenache in Walla Walla, you shouldn't be in Walla Walla. And here, these grapes really work. Why is that?
Well, I think we've got a really good spot where we have plenty of heat to get the fruit ripe, but we don't have so much heat that it cooks out the acidity, the natural acidity in the wine. It doesn't create typically any kind of cooked fruit aromas, so that we're not getting in beyond the ripening, the regular ripening, to that raisiny quality. Yeah. And I think we see that with this wine. This wine is obviously ripe, lots of red fruit, blue fruit, and black fruit, a little bit of an olive kind of savory note on this wine as well. But it still has a really nicely balanced acidity that keeps the wine fresh on the palate. Yep. And even though this wine's going to be a lot better when it gets released, it's still kind of a little bit bottle shocky to me. Yep. But I can tell all the components are there for this wine to have. It's got the fruit that we expect to have in Syrah. It's got that little bit of a savory kind of wild, gamey kind of thing going on, which I think is a wonderful way to add some complexity to the wine. This is in a decent amount of oak, but it's certainly not overpowering. It's like 40% new oak, so there's a little bit of an oak presence on the palate that kind of lifts the finish as far as the tannins go. But then underneath all of that, you've got this wonderful acidity that keeps the wine fresh. It keeps it lively on the palate.
Did you do any co-fermentation with this?
No, we did not.
No. It almost tastes like it. One thing that I like about it too is it has like a blood orange kind of character on the sides. So it's like this tingly sensation of red fruit citrus, and it's just kind of underneath your tongue there, and it's amazing. And that's what you want for a lively, vivid kind of Syrah, especially when it's this young. It's not even been released yet, but man, it's tasting great. It is really good. I'm loving this. You got it.
All right, then we'll move on to something a bit more hefty.
So that's the Syrah. Okay.
All right, so this is the 2020 Tempranillo Reserve.
Okay.
This actually has been released. This was released in November.
Looking good, looking dark, looking wonderful. There you go, Tempranillo Reserve. Tempranillo, the great grape of Spain. I will say this, and you know it very well because you worked for them, Abasela. Abasela Winery, we give them nothing but the greatest credit of all times. They are in Umpqua Valley up near Roseburg, and I'll tell you, that family did some great things for the world in bringing Tempranillo here and believing in Tempranillo. Tempranillo was blacklisted twice by UC Davis. I'm sorry for the old professors there that blacklisted it. It should have never been blacklisted. But that means it's just not going to work here. Even though it was in the original batch, actually the Jackson planting up in the Amador County, it was in that list in 1882, 83, something like that. And it was there, and it was doing okay. But, how they kind of blacklisted it. It was a story I wrote for Wine Business Monthly probably 15 years ago at least on Tempranillo, and it was just an amazing thing how we had Abasela when he just was passionate about that. I mean, that family is a very passionate family, and they really said it can work here, and they were right. And so here we are. We've got your Tempranillo, who I think you're one of the best producers of this in the United States, and you guys do win a lot of awards for this. But this is the Estate Reserve, so right there, Estate Reserve. I like this new label, by the way.
Thank you very much.
This is looking really good. I'm seeing the artist's name is on the back and stuff. This is kind of cool. This is total artwork. So. Tell us a little bit about why this works. This is once again a Spanish clone. It's all over Spain, so it's not just in one zone. It's all over. But what makes this a unique zone for it?
So if you look at how scientists quantify the growing season, they will typically quantify it related to the amount of heat received during the growing season. And so you can graph that out. And if you take the graph of the climate in the Rogue Valley and in the Umpqua Valley, and you lay that on top of that same graph from the Ribera del Duero and Rioja, you get virtually identical climate curves. And so that's what Earl figured out of it, Avicello and Greg, that the climate was identical to north central Spain, which is what Tempranillo loves. And so even though we're slightly different elevations, we have different soil types, the climate was the big thing that they bet on, and they were right.
They were right.
It does exceptionally
This is
well.
right, you guys. This is a really good one.
It's that wide diurnal swing during the summer. It's the warmth during the day to generate the sugar and ripen the fruit. It's the cool temperatures at night to preserve acidity. And it's the fact that our growing season is relatively narrow. We have generally a little bit late spring. We have generally a little bit of an early fall. And that the truncated season in the fall is really what defines how our Tempranillo ripens. So that it gets to this level of ripeness, which is, this is really, really ripe. But we still preserve a good amount of natural acidity. Tempranillo has a tendency to be pretty low acid, but we're able to preserve a lot of that natural acidity, and it creates wines that are more balanced.
Absolutely. And, we're in 2023 right now, technically, but you're going to be watching this whenever. Here's a good definition of a vintage. It was a really great vintage. It was going really good. And then Mother Nature just kind of said, pause for a while. And as you said, it gave you wines that are very elegant instead of powerful.
Right.
But that is the other thing about that, we were just talking about, Kiley was just saying, and it's a really important thing. Variety comes first. What variety is in this glass? Second thing is, what is the site? Is it the big zone here? Is it kind of a blend of the zone? Is it from the estate? And then what is the vintage character? And so this is a really unique one. So here we go. We got the 20. What was the 20 like for you? I mean, it was a very good vintage in California. We had, there were certain problems then because of not only COVID. Remember COVID, you guys? But there were also fires and things like that. So there's difficulties. But this is just graceful, elegant, sophisticated, layers of flavors going on down here. Why can this grape survive all this stuff?
We've been very fortunate in the Rogue Valley that we haven't had. We've had some issues with smoke and wildfires and things like that, but generally speaking, we've avoided the catastrophic situation for the most part. 2020 was a year that was characterized by smoke.
Yeah.
And so, but the smoke for us was relatively high altitude. Yeah. And by the time it got to be relatively thick in the vineyard, the smoke was old enough because the sources were far enough away that the smoke didn't really impact the fruit very much. But what it did was that high smoke cover gave us essentially cloud cover so that we didn't see really any heat spikes. We saw plenty of heat to ripen the fruit, but we didn't see those wide highs that we can sometimes see in the summertime. So we had a season that was relatively free of heat spikes. We had good, consistently warm weather, and when the smoke was really in the vineyard, we were fortunate. And the thing about 2022 is that. And that's back when there was a lot of research going on smoke impact. Yep. And so we did a lot of what we call micro fermentations in the winery, trying to figure out if our fruit had been impacted by the smoke. And we were not able to find anything that was with any consistency. Yep. And so, I'm tasting all these wines that we made just prior to harvest to try to figure out if we had any concerns with the smoke. I had colleagues, other winemakers in the valley coming through. I had all kinds of salespeople coming through because everyone was coming through Oregon and California, all traveling, trying to get a handle on what was going on as far as the smoke is concerned. And I had 25 or 30 people through the winery, and we could never consistently identify anything as definitely having some kind of smoke.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, I remember in 2008, there's a big fire in Mendocino County, and someone. It really hurt their wines, but some guy actually just bottled it and said Campfire Red. Yeah, Campfire Red, and everyone bought it because it tastes like campfire. But this is actually just elegance and sophistication. There's so much red fruit but dark fruit in here and wild berries. Yeah. I mean, it's so generous and it's so wonderful that I'm not tasting anything from that at all. I'm tasting really good winemaking. I'm tasting the site, which is right here. This is right behind us. One of these Tempranillo. Where's the Tempranillo planted on here?
Right there.
Yeah.
It's comes
actually
again
to
from
the
that
side
old
of
block.
us. Yeah. It's to
block
the side
one planted in 2009. And this is actually a clone of Tempranillo called Valdepenas.
Yeah,
So it's clone
Valdepenas.
3 from UC Davis.
Yeah.
That I worked with quite a bit at Avicella.
Yeah.
And we never really were that impressed with it at Avicella. But when I came down to the Rogue Valley and I tasted the first wine off of this site, I thought to myself, you know, if you're making wine that good out of that clone with the vines at their age, there's a tremendous potential for that clone in this valley. And so we've been very, very happy with it. You know, we've since planted a little bit more Tempranillo, and Tempranillo just does exceptionally well.
Yeah.
It really, really does. It's easy.
Yep.
It takes a little bit less effort, not less effort, but a little bit less labor in the vineyard. You know, it's a little bit easier, a little bit less intensive to train, to thin. It doesn't always make itself in the winery, but it comes pretty close to kind of making itself in the winery.
Yep.
And when, you know, I've always believed when
So
you
good.
get a variety that grows well naturally without a lot of additional input, it doesn't require a lot of manipulation or a lot of extra input in the winery. To me, that means that we've got a good site variety match.
I think they've got it, you guys. Padigan.com. You got to check them out. These two are not released yet, so hold on. It's going to be released at the beginning of the year. But I really want to thank you, Kiley. You know, this is just so fun to be here with you. Wish Ross was with us too, because he's so good to talk to.
He is.
And we would be really reliving those moments we spent in Telluride together. And I did get him there, and I was so happy about that. That was a big accomplishment for me. But you guys need to check this out. And I can't promote this enough. You know, Southern Oregon is awesome, and this winery is awesome. You know, we've got the Rogue Cheese Company, the creamery, Rogue Creamery, right down the road from us here. We've got an amazing sensation here, like just with the natural beauty of this place is unbelievable. You've got Ashland with the Shakespearean Festival. You've got all these little cities that are so cute, and there's a gold rush here too, you guys. People don't even realize this, but it's the natural beauty, and you've got Crater Lakes right there, and the best caves in America, the Oregon caves, are right out there. So there are a lot of reasons to come here, but there's also reasons to drink Oregon wines, and it's not all about Willamette. That's a great place, and they make amazing Chardonnay, Pinot Gris, and Pinot Noir up there. But this is about diversity down here and all the things you can really grow in Southern Oregon. This is amazing, and I want to thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure, Chris. Always.
Definitely. Cheers.
Cheers.